Order. I call Robbie Moore to move the motion.
I beg to move that this House has considered a new Airedale Hospital in my constituency of Keighley and Ilkley. And Sir Edward, I am delighted to serve under your chairmanship, and I am grateful to Mr Speaker for granting me this urgent debate. And it is urgent for the reasons that I will outline in this speech. And I also thank Mr Speaker for giving me the opportunity to continue my campaign in this place for a new Airedale Hospital. But I would also like to record my thanks to the Minister, who has met with me on multiple occasions to allow me to raise this issue with him. Now, I am lucky enough to represent such a diverse constituency in this place. My constituency is home to different towns, different communities, and with that, different challenges. And yet, if there is one thing which I hear from all four corners of my constituency, be that in Keighley, Ilkley, Silsden, the Worth Valley, and of course any other part in my constituency, it is that the Airedale Hospital needs and deserves a rebuild. And I know that I am not alone in this issue being raised by many constituents. Sir Edward, the Airedale Hospital serves a huge catchment, reaching right up into the Yorkshire Dales, into Lancashire, and of course serving many residents in West Yorkshire. My honourable friend, the member for Shipley, whose constituents benefit directly from the Airedale services, is also fully behind my campaign for a new rebuild, as is my right honourable friend, the member for Skipton and Ripon, and my honourable friend, the member for Pendle, all of whom have worked tirelessly with me on our joint endeavour to secure the Airedale Hospital long into the future. Sir Edward, even the Chancellor's constituents use Airedale Hospital. So let me outline the background and why my ask for a new rebuild of the Airedale Hospital is both urgent and very important to our communities. The Airedale employs over 3,500 members of staff and volunteers serving a population of over 200,000 people, whilst providing training and education, which creates lifelong careers for many of my constituents. The hospital was opened in 1970, with construction starting in the 1960s. And whilst the original life expectancy of the 1960s build was only 30 years, last year we celebrated the hospital's 50th birthday. Now, like many buildings built in the 1960s, the hospital is constructed predominantly from reinforced autoclaved aerated concrete, RAC, or aerated concrete for short, which is widely known for its structural deficiencies. In fact, a staggering 83% of the hospital is made from this material, and this includes the roof. The Airedale also has the largest flat-roofed NHS hospital in the country compared to any other NHS asset. And Sir Edward, this doesn't help when you take into account our lovely Yorkshire weather. Given our geography, our area, where the Airedale Hospital is situated, is one of the wettest areas in the UK, and this, coupled with its 1960s design flat roof, means that Airedale unfortunately experienced more leaks than any other hospital in the country, creating challenges with water pooling, which of course increases the weight on the concrete roof panels. But it also means that the flat roof soaks up the hot summer sun and of course years of heat, rain and frost through the tough winter months all take their toll on the current design of the building. Whilst many of these 1960s constructions have come and gone, the Airedale Hospital remains. It is thought to be the oldest aerated concrete hospital in the UK. Aerated concrete is present in the roof, the walls, and the Airedale Hospital is the only NHS Trust asset which has aerated concrete in its floor panels. In fact, in total, the hospital has over 50,000 aerated concrete panels, which is 5 times more than any other hospital affected by reinforced aerated concrete design. Aerated concrete is known to be about 1/20th of the strength of normal concrete. Now, Sir Edward, the Building Research Establishment have identified that aerated concrete roof panels are prone to fail when deflections between 50 and 90 millimetres come about. And it is deeply concerning to say that the Airedale Hospital has identified a significant number of aerated concrete panels with deflections approaching this threshold. Time is of the essence, and I cannot stress enough to the Minister just how important and how urgent this issue is. I could say that the warning signs are there for everybody to see, and of course they are. Hence me lobbying hard with other colleagues for a complete new rebuild of the Airedale Hospital so that we can completely remove the risks of aerated concrete construction. But my worry is that actually, no matter how much surveying and mitigation works are undertaken, all we are doing is delaying the potential risk of a collapse at a later date. The Minister will be well aware of our previous conversations about a school in Scotland whose roof, constructed by aerated concrete, unexpectedly collapsed in May 2019. Fortunately, no one was injured or killed by this event. However, this was a matter of timing and luck, nothing else. The collapse was not due to mislaid bricks or improper contracting. The Standing Committee on Structural Safety, in their report, concluded that the cause of the collapse was a sheer failure due to inadequate bearing following some minor structural alterations. But also following the failure was triggered by outfall guttering becoming blocked, which allowed pooling of water on the roof to quickly build up during a storm. I understand from the reports previously carried out by the building research establishment that it was thought that aerated concrete planks gave adequate warning through visual deterioration before failing. However, recent failings, including the school roof collapse in Scotland in May 2019, show that this can no longer be relied upon, and it is therefore necessary to reconsider maintenance and inspection regimes. In fact, the same committee issued an alert stating, and I quote, "Pre-1980 aerated concrete panels are now past their expected service life." And Sir Edward, I reiterate that here I am discussing my hospital, which was built during the 1960s. So the reality is, Sir Edward, the longer the hospital remains in its current state, I am afraid it becomes more possible that such a tragic event could happen in the hospital itself if action is not taken. And should there be such a collapse, even if only in one small part of the hospital, imagine the consequences. Impact on life, impact on services, impact on the day-to-day operations of our much-loved hospital. I have been at the hospital for several visits since being the MP, including having been up onto the roof to see the issues for myself, but I also visited parts of the hospital which are currently closed to the public, sealed off due to reasons directly linked to mitigating the risk from the fact that their hospital is built from aerated concrete. So when one thinks of how much we rely on the NHS every day, particularly this past year, the idea of any hospital, or even a small part of it, having to temporarily shut its doors really hits home. Members of the Airedale Trust have also made it clear to me their fear of a loss of public confidence in the hospital given its structural deficiencies. Such a loss of confidence would be through no fault of their own. They have a brilliant team who I've been working incredibly closely with. But it does demonstrate and show why this problem must be dealt with as soon as possible. And as I have said, the more that time goes on without acting, the greater the risk of structural failure. So what is currently being done to mitigate such risk? The Airedale Trust performs several procedures to try and mitigate the dangers created by aerated concrete. They carry out regular inspections of the hospital, but these inspections have found that more than 500 related structural failure incidents caused by aerated concrete, including 27 cracked concrete panels, 327 roof leaks, and one incident of falling debris. The Trust is regularly forced to make changes within the hospital to deal with these problems to ensure that it can operate. During the winter months, they must act quickly to remove rainwater and snow to prevent the flat roof from leaking and ensure that gully drains remain unblocked. As one would expect, this work comes at a significant cost, and the Airedale Trust have already had approval for emergency funding of £15 million. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. The backlog maintenance for the site currently stands at 480 million, making it financially unviable to consider removing or replacing aerated concrete from the existing structure. And of course, it isn't just about the maintenance cost, it's about the impact on healthcare service. The Trust has predicted that if a temporary closure was to happen, 45,000 referrals to treatment across West Yorkshire and Harrogate would be delayed. 60,000 diagnostic tests and procedures, including MRI scans and ultrasound therapy treatments, as well as 2,000 maternity deliveries would be also impacted. Overall, the Airedale Trust have estimated that if an emergency closure were to happen, then up to 346,000 patients across the local area could be impacted. These are chilling figures and make a new Airedale Hospital such a necessity. A modular approach has been suggested and a potential means to regenerate the Airedale Hospital by using such an approach, in line with the Department for Health's commitment to eradicating aerated concrete from NHS buildings by 2035. But this, in my view, whilst an option, comes with significant challenges in terms of structural connectivity with existing parts of the building, not to mention the impact on the provision of healthcare services. But we can't forget the Airedale Trust's independent structural engineers report warns that the hospital's aerated concrete panels must be replaced by no later than 2030, which is only in 9 years' time. I make my case, Sir Edward, and I know the Minister who I've had many a meeting and conversation with gets my concerns, but we do need action and we need to make decisions now. And yet, as I continue to lobby with my honourable and right honourable neighbours, the Airedale Hospital continues to provide an incredible service to many of my constituents in Keighley and Ilkley, as well as the wider area. A service delivered by incredible doctors and nurses, as well as other NHS staff, with a real sense of duty. And at this point, I must extend my personal thanks to Brendan Brown, the Chief Executive of the Airedale NHS Foundation Trust, and his team, and of course thank the Friends of the Airedale Hospital for such a fantastic local charity whose volunteers do so much to help the staff and patients. But we need to now look ahead at what the next stage is for the Airedale Hospital, and I'm delighted to say that the Airedale Trust have provided an ambitious, detailed and affordable plan for a complete new rebuild which we can make into a reality. These proposals are convenient in that they would not disrupt the current workings of the Airedale Hospital in the same way the current problems do, or in the same way that any sticking plaster approach will have. A strategic outline case was completed in January of this year, where a full appraisal recommended the most cost-effective and future-proof solution would be to build a new hospital for Airedale within the 43-acre grounds that the Trust owns, and this could be completed in as little as 3 years from sign-off. These are exciting plans with strong environmental case. The Airedale Trust's vision is to create Europe's first carbon-neutral, fully digitally enabled hospital with the capabilities to generate renewable energy on-site. The financial, environmental and practical case for a new Airedale Hospital is clear for all to see, and I note, I would like to, I'd be delighted to invite the Minister to come and join me and the Chief Executive, Brendan Brown, and his brilliant team for a visit to the Airedale so that we can continue our discussions and get some solid, concrete commitment from the Minister that a new rebuild is the way forward. I, of course, welcome the announcement that the Government will be investing in another 8 new build hospitals, but we want to now have an update on how and when we will be able to bid for this funding and to know whether these 8 places will be ring-fenced for NHS trusts with hospitals that have the highest risk profile. So as I conclude my speech, may I end by sending a loud and clear message to the Minister that I cannot stress enough the urgency of this issue and the desperate need for clarity now so that we can take matters forward in a sensible manner which we are not simply throwing good money after bad. I am not in the game of seeking a make-do or half-hearted approach to solve this challenge. Given the facts, the high structural risk profile of the Airedale Hospital, the highest, I might add, amongst any other hospital in the UK, the solution I seek is a complete new rebuild to eliminate any risk and provide the healthcare service at the Airedale site long into the future for many generations to come.
Thank you. The question is that this House has considered a new Airedale Hospital, and I call the Minister to respond.
Well, thank you very much, Sir Edward, and I've known you a very long time, so it's always a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship in this place. And I congratulate my honourable friend, the member for Keighley and Ilkley, for securing this debate. And I know that since his election to this House, he has worked tirelessly, not just on matters of healthcare, but for his constituents in representing all of their needs in this House, but particularly in the context of my role within government on the issue of the hospital estate at Airedale. He quite rightly, just as I open, he quite rightly thanks the team there, and it is right he does so, and I hope he'll allow me to join with him and ask him to pass on to the team there my thanks for everything they've done, not just during this extraordinary past 18 months where they've been amazing, but year in, year out for his constituents, the constituents of my right honourable friend, the member for Pendle, right honourable friend, the member for Skipton and Ripon, and of course my honourable friend, the member for Shipley, all of whom I know join with him in pressing the case for a rebuild of Airedale Hospital. And he also, in a sense, puts his money where his mouth is, because if I recall from my reading of the Keighley News, one of the things which he is doing, and he's a braver or certainly fitter man than I, is running 100 kilometres in, I think, 10 weeks to raise money for a number of charities, including the Friends of Airedale, who he quite rightly paid tribute there. So I wish him all the very best with that. And as he alluded to, I had the pleasure of meeting with my honourable friend and other local MPs back in February to discuss this important matter, and indeed he and I have spoken about this on a number of occasions. Since his election to the House, he has never missed an opportunity to very politely but very firmly lobby me and raise with me and the Secretary of State this issue on behalf of his constituents. He set out the history of the hospital site and quite rightly highlighted the key issue, which is the fact that reinforced autoclaved aerated concrete, light form of concrete used primarily for roofs in the mid-50s to the mid-80s, is the key component part of this building. And he quite rightly, or these buildings, he quite rightly highlighted the limited durability of rack roofs, and that has been long recognised, but recent experience suggests this problem may be more serious than previously appreciated. Now, he highlighted in his comments that surveying is continuing at Airedale General Hospital to fully assess the extent and condition of the rack planks, and completion of this, I believe, is expected in the coming months, and I have asked to be updated on that when that full survey becomes available. But I do understand that in preliminary findings, surveys have already found issues relating to the deflection of rack panels, which I know cause his trust concern. So I do fully recognise the need to invest in improving health infrastructure across the country, and these safety risks are no different, and he has emphasised the urgency. At the Spending Review 2020, courtesy of my right honourable friend the Chancellor, we provided the NHS with £4.2 billion in 2021 for NHS operational capital investment to allow hospitals to maintain and refurbish their infrastructure, including a £110 million ring-fenced allocation to address the most serious and immediate risks posed by rack planks. And within that ring-fenced allocation, as he has mentioned, a significant multi-million pound allocation has been made to earmark to mitigate rack risks at his local hospital. Now, this will go towards re-roofing as well as decamp facilities whilst work is underway, helping to improve safety for patients and staff, and will continue to review business cases and progress at rack-affected trusts, including his, to ensure we make the full and best use of all those funds over the coming year. But he highlights a very important point in his remarks, which he alluded to, which was at what point does fixing something and mitigating something cost more than it would to actually replace it and then eliminate the risk and actually have a modern fit-for-purpose facility going forward. And I do fully recognise the need to mitigate rat risk beyond this year. So, alongside further investment in mitigation, which I have to confess will be a matter for my right honourable friend, the Chief Secretary and the Chancellor in the spending review, and he would not expect me to preempt them, as that can sometimes have unfortunate consequences. But he will know, and he will know in that context, rat remediation is not the only area we're investing in at Airedale. Of course, on top of this, the Foundation Trust received just shy of £250,000 to upgrade its emergency department from the wider package of £450 million for A&E improvements announced last year by my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister. And last year, the Trust received £1.7 million allocation to address backlog maintenance at Airedale General Hospital from the £600 million critical infrastructure risk fund. But of course, my honourable friend, and I turn to this now, wishes me to speak about the future and what he's highlighted his strong campaign for investment in a new hospital for his constituents, beyond the investment we're making to manage and mitigate immediate risks. As he will be aware, the Prime Minister and the Secretary of State confirmed 40 new hospitals will be built by 2030, with funding of £3.7 billion confirmed for the first tranche. Now, I know he was disappointed that Airedale was not in that first tranche, but as is typical of him, ever undaunted, he has continued his campaign to persuade government with ever renewed vigour. And I can offer him some hope on that in terms of the prospect of the 8 hospitals he referred to. Now, an open process will be run to identify those 8 further new schemes, delivering on the government's manifesto commitment. He asked a couple of specific questions about those, which I'll endeavour, insofar as I can, to answer now. The details of this and the criteria and how that process will be run are due to be announced soon, with a generous period for trusts and SDP, ICS partners to respond. And to put a little bit more colour on that, I would hope that we'll be able to make that announcement of the process before the summer recess, but I will, of course, keep him fully aware of progress on that. He asked also about funding and how that might be allocated. Again, with the caveat that I can't preempt any spending review announcement and the Chancellor's decision on that, I would not anticipate that all 8 of those would be ring-fenced for hospitals such as his, but what I would say, which I hope will encourage him, is that clearly one of the key criteria and one of the key considerations in the allocation of whatever funding is made available will have to be safety considerations and the urgency of any need for a new hospital. It won't be the only factor, but I can reassure him I will, and the Secretary of State will bear that very much in mind. And I would also reassure him that any trusts who receive money in the interim to mitigate safety issues and spend that money will not find that because they've undertaken that work that in any way counts against them in a bid for a new hospital. It will be fairly and openly considered, and the points he's made, I'm sure, will be reflected in that. We do continue to work very closely with trusts and regions to ensure that the criteria for selection does best meet the needs of the NHS, both nationally and locally, and of course achieves value for money for the taxpayer. And in that context, those schemes which we will consider will be based on the balance of benefits realised for staff, patients of local communities, condition, going to his safety point, and affordability, value for money. And of course, in that context, as part of a national programme in seeking to achieve value for money, we will be looking to see a greater degree of standardisation across those new hospitals with modern methods of construction, modular builds where appropriate. I note his points, and I suspect that should we get to that point, he'll want to be engaged in the discussions to make sure that we get value for money, but were his hospital to get the go-ahead, that it would also deliver what is needed locally. And of course, he touched on in his speech, we'll be looking for new hospitals to be digitally fit for the future, and indeed clean, green and sustainable as we look forward to the future. So my honourable friend, I know, continues, and I suspect until either I or the Secretary of State or the Chancellor relent, will continue to firmly make the case for Airedale's inclusion in our hospital building programme in those next 8. And I very much look forward to seeing the bids for the remaining slots when the time comes for those to be submitted. I suspect, I can't preempt it, but I suspect his hospital might be one of those bids that I see put forward by the Trust In conclusion, Sir Edward, as ever, I want to commend the work that my honourable friend is doing to raise support for Airedale Hospital and indeed, as I said, to personally raise money for the friends of the hospitals. On numerous occasions he's raised the estate issues faced by his hospital in this House, and as I say, we are taking action in the short term to help mitigate those risks, but I know he continues to make the case for the long term, and I would say his constituents are incredibly lucky to have a Member of Parliament who is so assiduous and determined in carrying out his role in representing them to government and in this place. He very kindly invited me up to sunny Airedale, or hopefully sunny if I get the visit in the summer, sunny Airedale to visit the hospital and the trust, and I'd be delighted to take him in on that. He may have a slight challenge, given a slight risk of vertigo of getting me up on the roof to see it, but I suspect that won't deter him from trying to persuade me to see for myself the issues. But I'd be very, very happy to come and visit him and indeed other honourable and right honourable friends in the area. And more broadly, I look forward to continuing to work very, very closely with him, with my right honourable friends and members for Skipton and Ripon and Pendle, and my honourable friend the member for Shipley, in seeking to deliver on this government's ambition of levelling up and improving the NHS services available across the country to our constituents, including in his constituency. Thank you, Sir Edward.
Thank you. The question is, that this House considered a new Airedale Hospital, as many that